And the Locked On road to the NHL trade deadline continues. The Montreal Canadiens making a deal. They send Evgenii Dadonov to the Dallas Stars in exchange for Denis Gurianov. With me now, Laura Saba of Locked On Canadiens. And Laura, your initial thoughts when you heard about this trade?
I was surprised, to be honest. Not only had we been hearing that the Canadians were expected to be quiet around the trade deadline, Evgeny Dadonov has not had a good season in Montreal. We kept trying to wait for him or will him into doing something that would interest other teams. Everybody knew he was acquired in order to be traded at the trade deadline. For me, this is an asset. Obviously, your mileage may vary because obviously Denis Gurianov's season has gone extremely off the rails and his development has not progressed in the way that you would have wanted to if you look at his earlier years in the NHL. But the Canadians are picking up an asset and not nothing for Dadonov, which to me is a huge win in itself. That's one. And two, the Habs seem to be liking these reclamation projects lately. And I don't know if I would call Kirby Duck a reclamation project really or not, but up until his mysterious injury, he was thriving in Montreal. You just had to put him in the right situation. The same thing with Sean Monahan. Up until his mysterious injury, he was thriving in Montreal. So the Canadians are kind of they are that team now that is taking a flyer on a player that may or may not pan out. To me, this is a win for Montreal. I've seen some people say, obviously the Canadians retain half of Dadonov's salary, so that is something that is concerning to Canadians fans at the moment. For me, I'm like, it comes off the books at the end of the year. If it was something where it was multiple years of 50% salary retention, I'd be very upset about it. But yes, they are using one retention spot. But to me, like at the end of the day, it's an arbitration eligible player. They could, in theory, walk away from this deal, trade him again, or see how it goes next season.
Yeah, and you have about 20 or so games this season to see how he fits in. Where do you see him fitting into the lineup? Do you have an idea what line they'll put him on, what kind of a role he'll have?
To me, I honestly couldn't tell you simply because of all the Canadians' injuries right now. There are just so many on defense, on forward. It's very, very confusing. And you're seeing players, for example, that on any other team you would see on the fourth line playing on the first line, or vice versa. Like there's a lot of mess right now in Montreal. So I'm not gonna predict where he's gonna go, but I think that the Canadians needing bodies, both up front and on the back end, as long as he stays healthy and he can fill that in, they can put him in a few different spots. I think for me, what they want to see is they want to look at this player and they want to see if there's any promise or if his game is irreversibly broken.
So you get the audition for the rest of this season. Trade deadline now about 5 days away. Do you see Montreal trying to make any other deals? I mean, they're not in the playoff hunt necessarily, but any attempts to unload any other players or to get any more picks or prospects?
I think that Kent Hughes, despite the fact that again we'd heard in the news that they were expected to be quiet, they were happy with they still had time on some of these players with term to figure it out. I think Kent Hughes is one of the people that talks a lot on the phones as in the NHL, one of the most the most active GMs on the phone calls. And so you never know what he might have up his sleeve. I mean, last season he said that he had no intention of trading Artturi Lehkonen, and then the Canadians got Justin Barron for him. So, I think that if there's a deal to be had that benefits the Canadians, he's going to absolutely do it. But at the same time, he set himself up in such a way that if he doesn't make any more deals for this trade deadline, it's not the end of the world. I think he's been very smart, but also I do believe him to be one of the most active players because he has been since November. He's been like calling all kinds of GMs and trying to see if there's a fit for even Rem Pitlick, who they ended up putting on waivers, right? So I have faith that if there's something that's going to happen that will benefit the Canadians in any way, like in this case, it's like a in any way scenario in that they're not letting Dadonov walk away for nothing. Like if that happens, I think he's going to absolutely do it.
All right. Well, it should be interesting. And be sure to check out Locked On Canadiens for more on this deal and all things Montreal Canadiens and keep it dialed on to Locked On NHL all along the road to the NHL trade deadline. This is the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.